The College Football Treatment.
Hello and welcome to the pilot episode of the College Football Treatment. This is a new podcast discussing whether college football players are treated justly in comparison to what they bring to the sport. So this is just our introduction to what the podcast is going to be about, what we're going to be discussing. For the first episode, we've got an NCAA committee member coming on. We're looking at a student athlete, ideally, so we can discuss certain new rules that are coming in that are helping college footballers.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've explained it pretty well there, Dan. Each episode, obviously, we're going to have someone different on that kind of brings something to our overall knowledge of the topic. So someone that can give us a different viewpoint of it. And then obviously, as we go along each episode, we'll each of us will form our own different opinion of whether we think they are justly treated. So yeah, I think it's I like the idea.
I'm excited about the idea. I mean, for the first episode, we'd ideally like to have a student on just to talk about the balance between being a student, being a student, being an athlete, being part of a committee, and how their workload is, because obviously football is a tolling sport anyway. So to balance the three of them must be tough.
Yeah. I think the main reason we're trying to get, it's going to be around 7 different points of view in terms of our question. And the main reason we want that many is because we obviously we don't have the access to the sport in a way that they do. So having 7 different expert opinions on the sport and on our question, it will really give us an insight and a good way to answer our hypothesis question by the conclusion episode, which
will allow us to form an opinion, because obviously having that many different viewpoints, it's going to allow us to kind of see each different aspect of it. And for example, for episode 2, we're thinking of having a college football analyst on, so speaking to them about how different the level of football is between the pro level and college level, and kind of what the college footballers bring to the sport in terms of entertainment and that sort of thing. So again, that'll give us a different viewpoint of someone who is a college football analyst, so someone that watches it weekly.
Yeah, and it's all about sort of building our knowledge up so that by the end of the series we can then review what we've spoke about, review the different aspects of football, and hopefully sort of try and become as expert as we can in the field, so that we can answer the hypothesis. I mean,
that's like I was.
I never use the word expert.
That's like I was saying, the ability to get a variety of people on with a variety of different views and people coming from different areas of the sport will give us a good insight and a good way to build off start our opinion and form an opinion on our hypothesis.
So, and then sort of moving on to episode 3, not as smoothly as we moved on to episode 2, but for 3 and 4, we're looking at how tolling the sport is just as a standalone. So
on the person,
hopefully get someone from a college medical staff on, talk about some of the injuries, some of the case studies they've had that have maybe affected an education or a professional career, and then in terms of the mental aspects of it, getting a psychologist on to talk about how mentally tolling the sport is, because you think about the crowds that they get, the pressure that's on them. This is, for a fan, someone's livelihood is supporting a college.
This episode will be quite interesting because, us 3 being students at college, it's the workload for us, we think that's a lot, just being students, being student athletes, the pressure that they're going to be dealing with. Obviously, the sport is massive over in America. The crowds they get in are just astronomical. So the pressure that they're dealing with, along with their studies at the same time, it'll be interesting to kind of get that view because, like I said, we're students and we think our workload's hard, so never mind that of a student athlete. So it'll be interesting to see how the psychologists see that and the physios and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it does show the extent of the workload they receive as a college player. The fact that there are even psychologists involved. Like, I know we do have the access to therapy and help in that sort of perspective, but it's so different over there, and the way that they have to juggle on one hand their degree, what they pay what they pay to do, which is the main reason probably 98% of them go to college, as well as this. We can't even comprehend how big it is because we've not been given the access to experience it firsthand. But like it's been touched on before, the crowds they get, the money involved, and all the different aspects that come into the college game, how pressureful it is for them to have to juggle them both, and the fact that there is psychologists involved in it does show how difficult it must be for them as almost children. Really, they're only young adults coming into such a pressurized sort of field.
Yeah. Well, obviously we touched on the crowds. The following episode or past that, we want to look at getting sort of a fan on, but I'd like to get like a fan who's solely a fan of college football, so isn't it like incredibly interested in the NFL. He wants their livelihood is college football, sort of how someone's livelihood might be an NBA team or an NFL team, but they solely support a college, because I think that that in itself shows the sort of level that we're talking about here. We're talking about effectively a professional level without the profession side of it, if that makes sense.
I do think for that episode as well, it would be interesting to, obviously, if we do get just a fan of just a college team, but I think it is also interesting if we get someone who is a fan of the NFL as well, and they can kind of speak to us about why they favour the college football side over NFL or vice versa, or that. I think that could be interesting as well. But obviously, we'll see what any viewers we have think of possibly what we could do with that episode. Because obviously, that's the whole point of this. It's kind of getting people's opinions on it and whether people think they'd enjoy it or if they'd listen to it or watch it.
I also think it's a relatively untouched subject in terms of
exactly.
It's spoken about in passing comment, but it's not been touched upon in like a media perspective.
I think especially for a UK audience as well.
Yeah.
But this is a thing like we touched on earlier. It's college football is such a big thing. Like Dan said, there are people who do just support college teams, which over here is sort of, we don't have that sort of culture. Like, it's unthinkable, really. So to discover an audience that would be interested in it is what we're trying to do. Like, we're trying to get people's opinions on the matter as well, and sort of help people as well, not just to listen to the podcast, but to also form an opinion on a relatively such subjects in such a wide scale thing. Like in America, college football is massive, like we've touched on.
And then obviously our final couple of episodes rounding off the podcast, obviously by then we're starting to formulate an opinion. We'll then get a coach and a player on as separate episodes to talk about how does it affect a player firsthand, because obviously we're talking about these different positions and roles of people, but how you can't get a first person perspective like you can from a player, which I think is an important way to round off the series.
Definitely. A coach as well, because like we said before, coaches do get paid, so it's slightly different getting an opinion of a coach, because they get paid, so they've got a specific opinion on it, because they are classed as professionals. They get poached by NFL teams and other teams that play professional football, so it's like they do get paid, but whereas the players, they don't get paid, they don't receive that sort of benefit like coaches do. Obviously there's different aspects of how players benefit from it, but I think that's why it would be interesting to get a coach on, because they can see it firsthand. They do get paid, so they've got their own opinion of what the players should be like, treated like.
I think it's not only that, it's also, apart from the players, the coaches are the ones that are closest to the players. They will know the players just as well as the players know themselves, really. They're the ones that get to watch their game and watch how skillful they are. And like you touched on, Jamie, the fact that they would have been trained by NFL teams, and they would have been able to see the level and compare the level, which helps with our hypothesis, because they'll be able to help us sort of compare the difference in skill level, difference in work that gets put into it, and they'll be able to give us sort of a player's perspective, but from the outside looking in, maybe a less biased perspective than a player would, because obviously players are just going to say, yeah, we deserve to be treated this way, that way. But I think coaches will give us quite an interesting point of view that won't be touched on in any of the other episodes.
So in terms of guests we're looking to get on, obviously there's no specifics quite yet, but sort of we've looked at the top end or towards the middle end of Division 1. So we're looking at quite a high skill level, just so we can make a fair comparison. So, I mean, by chance, if anyone's listening to this that would like to come on the podcast or would like to give their opinions on the idea, this will be on YouTube, it'll be on Spotify, our Twitter will be there, here, there, down to towards you, right? And yeah, hopefully stick with us throughout the 9 or 10 episodes. We'll also have a blog set up with some different case study articles. So yeah, we'll keep you posted on the Twitter, and hopefully see you for episode 2.
Just want to add in here, Dan, that is like the main goal of this episode, really. I know it's an intro episode, but kind of just getting people's take on it. What do people think about it? We'd like some sort of feedback, like from any viewers we might have. So that's what we want. We just want feedback, whether it's good or bad. We just want to hear what you guys think about it, really.
And this is an opinion-based podcast as well. So any opinions on the podcast as a whole, more than welcome. But if anyone does want to sort of give their opinion on the podcast, if they feel passionate about the subject, then don't hesitate to sort of contact us, and we'll try and like get you on and be able to like give your opinion on the matter.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
that rounds it up.
We'll see you all for episode 2.